Hi class, I just clicked on the link to the very first Replit, our C# begins Replit, and Replit has taken me into this Teams activity. Within this C# begins Teams activity have several different assignments. Now you can tell I had started on some of these. I'm going to go ahead and show you this first one. I can click on this link or I can click continue working here. Either way, when the Replit opens, we'll see that we have three areas to our screen. First of all, we have our C# files and any other Replit files in this window. In the middle, we have our actual C# code. And what's more important to us right now is over on the far right, we have the instructions. And the instructions should pop up automatically whenever you open a Replit. But notice they are in this tabbed window area. So if a different tab is overlaying the instructions, you can click on the instructions tab to return to the instructions for each Replit. In the Replit interface, the Run button runs the code, the C# code that is in the C# file that we're working on. And we'll be looking at all of these things. The Replit will help us identify all these different components and not only find our code, but start being able to read it and create our own code. So always find the instruction file. When you're looking at the instructions, remember we're using REPL because it's a very nice interface for getting started and it lets us practice our C# code on any device. We'll be able to use it for the beginning of our course. Remember, Replit activities are a supplement to your textbook and instructor videos, not a replacement. That all works together. When you work on a Replit, you can try that assignment in Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code as well. Simply copy the code, all of it, from Replit into Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code and run in that environment. Remember, our C# code is always the same. It's just the different environment you're using to develop the code that can give you a difference in appearance. Now, we're looking at our instructions, and I see that I'm down here, it says the information that I'm reading is from the instructions.md file. So the instructions will always contain instructions for the project. You can click on the main.cs file here in your Files section to find your C# code. Sometimes beginning code is supplied, and if you see a main.exe file, that's the compiled version of the C# code. Notice that the class name here after the keyword class must always be main class in Replit for the Replit to behave correctly. Let's go ahead and run this supplied code to see our output. Run it, and I see that my output is this line here that says hello world. I'll be looking at the code that generated that as I go, but that's what I'm looking for now. I'm going to return to my instructions, and it says that after you've run this applied code, run this applied tests. Well, there's a couple of different ways I can run tests. I can use the submit button if I've never run the test before, and Replit will prompt me to run them, or I can choose the test icon from the toolbar on the far left and then run the test. When I run the test, I see that this test passed. I can view the results. It shows me the expected output was hello world. My actual output was hello world. Since they matched, I passed. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this project. Now, when I submit the project in Replit, I have to return back using the breadcrumb path to the Replit team to continue working. I'm going to go into this next one so we can look at it. Again, we see our instructions, and I've already completed this one, so I'm going to put it back to its original state, the way yours looks. Now, I see in my instructions, it tells me Hello World is a common first program, a rite of passage actually. I can click Run to run it. This code only outputs hello, and then my program seems to be hanging. It's just sitting here. It's not done, but it's not doing anything. Well, that's because the first line of code in my main wrote the line out that said hello. That's a string. Then it issued the statement console.readKey. And that's where we are. We're sitting here on our console waiting for the system to read a key. So we better give it a keystroke. I'm going to press enter, and we should see that causes our program to finish. It's able to read that keystroke that I gave it and end. Now I'm going to look at my instructions again. And in my instructions, it says I need to update this program so it displays hello world instead of just hello. So I'm going to put my insertion point right there before the closing double quote, and I'm going to add the word world. Now, as I look at this, I notice that they do talk about the read key command. It says that here in REPL, the read key command has little effect. We saw it just makes our program kind of hang there. So it's not really, doesn't seem to be causing us trouble. So I'm going to go ahead and run my program again. I see my output now says hello world. I'm going to press enter to finish. Now I'm ready to run my tests. So I'll click on the tests icon and run the tests. My test failed, so I'm going to take a look at the results and see why. We'll look at that. It says that my expected output included an exclamation point, and my actual output didn't. So I'm missing that little explanation point. The instructions wanted me to get that error so that I would see what it looks like when there's not a match. So I'm going to go back and add the exclamation point to my string and run my test again. This time I passed. I'll check the results. Sure enough, everything is good. So I can close. The console.read key did make my program pause, but it didn't cause me any trouble in passing the test. And I want you to remember that read key statement could cause some trouble. It's there because some versions of Visual Studio would close the console screen before people would get to see the output messages. So programmers started putting this read key statement in to make things wait. So you can comment that out by putting 2 slashes at the beginning of the line of code if it's causing any trouble. Now, since I commented that out or changed that line of from code to a comment, I need to run the tests again, make sure I didn't change anything that caused a problem. And I didn't. Everything still passed. So I'm going to submit my replit. I'm going to go back to my main list and look at my next one. Now, as you go through your replits, notice they should update to tell you when they were submitted. I do have to refresh the screen to see that updated information. Now we can see that I've updated these two since updating this third one. So don't forget on Replit, sometimes you might need to refresh or reload the screen, and that works even if Replit seems to get hung. My next option is Hello World again. As I look at this one, you'll see that your console.writeLine statement is empty. You need to add the words Hello World into the area between the double quotes. And I went ahead and commented out the console read key statement. Now, if I got into some sort of problem where I wanted to revert to the original code, I could do that in Replit. I would use the history option, and that would allow me to go back to the beginning. I'll pick this very first update. Here's the comparison of what this original code was and the update I made to it. And if I want to go back to this original code, I can click Restore, and that will set the Replit back to its beginning level. So don't forget that you have that history option that's always available to you so that you can restore things back to an earlier version if you like. One last thing while you're using Replit, if you run into an error that you can't quite solve, you can send me a message. If you highlight the code in error, please don't highlight too much code, just the little bit that matters. You can start a thread. And if you start a thread, you can say, I am getting an error here, and I need your help. Now, whenever you're asking for help, you want to be as specific as possible. So I would want to give more information if I had it. But that's all I had at this point. So I'm going to click send to send this message as a student. Now, this student message may make it to the instructor, but there's a really good way I can make sure that it does. If I click up here on the URL and copy it, I could go to Teams and send that to the instructor saying, I posted a message to you in this Replit. Could you please help? And then I'll be happy to just jump in your Replit and take a look at it for you and help you figure out what the problem is. Remember, that's what Replit's for, is because we can get to the problem quickly and solve it and get you moving again. So please don't spin your wheels. If you've got something that you're not understanding, reach out to your study group, and then you can reach out to me. Have a great time with Replit. Bye.